we got to get right into it. The Marvels is officially the worst opening ever for an MCU film. And then after its worst opening for an MCU film ever, it then has the biggest second weekend drop. And as I said in my video, and I'm sure Ryan has broke this down too, it's one thing to have a record-breaking opening weekend in the positive direction and then have a massive second weekend drop. That makes sense. It's front loaded. If you do
Yeah, like No Way Home or whatever,
yeah,
right? People
mhm,
are like, oh,
yeah,
we got to go see it before spoilers. That had
right,
like a
right,
pretty big drop second weekend because it
right.
made like $350 million opening
Exactly.
weekend.
It's another thing to have a record low opening weekend, then to follow that record low up with the worst second week drop in, I think, comic book movie history, correct? It beat Morbius, correct?
Correct.
What an
In the
accomplishment.
history of comic book movies, I don't care if we're talking about Blade. I don't care if we're talking about
Meteor Man?
like anything, any comic book movie in history. The Flash's box office bomb that was like 72%. Morbius at like around 74 or 75%. Nothing compares to the Marvels. It is breaking through all barriers, setting records. The highest opening weekend for a movie directed by a black female is also the movie that's going to lose the most money in history for the MCU.
I'm so
Also,
proud. I'm so
will be
proud of black people. I'm so proud of black people for
another
this
big
accomplishment.
first. The first MCU title to fall short of the $100 million domestic mark. They
Woo!
just cannot stop. Look at this comparison. A 10.2 million. And we don't have the final number yet. The final number should be coming out at some point within the next, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes here.
Mhm.
Oh, they're in. The numbers are in. Thanksgiving moved up $100,000. The Marvels is fourth place at the box office this weekend. 10.2 million, fourth place. Thanksgiving is at 10.3. So I assume that those are updated numbers. Maybe we don't have the updated Marvel numbers, but at least Thanksgiving updated. A 78% drop off in its second weekend. Overseas, it didn't do much better. A 70% drop overseas. So it's not like it's going to be carried by the international box office. And now the Marvels is looking like it might crack $200 million, maybe 225, somewhere in that vicinity. It doesn't get much
Jeez.
worse than this.
Yeah, no, this is it. I mean, if you go back, and this is what I like to celebrate. Go back to when Captain Marvel came out. It made over $1 billion, and you remember Rotten Tomatoes changed their site up. The media writing these favorable articles and preaching and praising Brie Larson. That really did drive home, I think, the hatred towards her. It was the media just taking everything and just putting her on this pedestal. Now she's horribly unlikable, but it was all the stuff surrounding it. And now looking at where we are, you remember all the Brie bots, all the Stan accounts, all these weirdos that were going after you. They're nowhere to be found now. It's nothing close to what it used to be. And if I could go back in time during that success and know that we were heading towards this colossal failure, it would have brought me so much joy at that particular point in time. But we all kind of knew that that was where this was heading. We all knew it was a house of cards. But now seeing the reality of this happen, and on top of that, substantially worse than any of these rage bait, clickbait YouTubers predicted. Even people always say these guys they just blow all the negativity out of proportion. Dude, this movie's doing worse than any of us predicted. No one. Ryan, do you know anyone that predicted these numbers? This is horrific.
Not quite like this. It's pretty bad. And it's a combination of things. Not combination like, oh, the writers and actors strike bullshit. Not that.
No.
It's a movie that was not well received, but they market it as the most important thing in the world. That is a big factor why people saw Captain Marvel in the first place. Not because it was featuring a female, not because female empowerment, it's because you told Marvel fans that this is something that's very important to go see. Remember, Ant-Man and the Wasp also came out in between Infinity War and Endgame, but it wasn't necessarily marketed as the most important thing for you to watch. Captain Marvel was. The tease, the final moment for Infinity War, we see the Captain Marvel like emblem. Like she's supposed to come and save the day. So you got this massive fan base. You told that was important. They went and go saw it. They didn't like it. Very, very split. And then you combine that factor with two other characters that people are not interested in, forcing them into this, the way that it was marketed, the fact that people are tuned out of the MCU period at this time, the fact that it's a sequel to like 5 or 6 other things, most on Disney Plus that people also don't care about. The care factor for this movie is so low, and it is just truly the indication that after 15 years, we've hit an all-time low for Marvel, at least for right now. I guess it could always get worse.
I guess the question moving forward is, does this change the focus of the MCU, Ryan, with this colossal failure of the Marvels, or do they continue on the same path?
Well, I don't think this actually changes anything because I think things are already in the works. Like, I think it's obvious they knew that this was going to be bad. That's why we're already hearing things about all these directors that have been switched around, these writers that have been swapped around, things that have been like Daredevil completely remaking it from the ground up. The Blade movie once again is getting rebooted from the start. The Captain America for having undergoing massive fucking reshoots. The rumors we hear about the villains they want to move away from versus bring in. All of this shit was already in the works. I think that they knew the Marvels was going to do this. I think they knew it was going to happen. Just across the board, the interest level in the MCU is down. Fans have walked away. So is this failure going to necessarily be the catalyst? No. I think this failure is going to be the nail in the coffin for the public perception of Marvel and its protection by the media. Because you still got some media outlets that are being like, well, you got to think about this. You got to think about this. The actor strike. They're making as many excuses as they can, but they can't deny that they're running the same headlines. It's the biggest flop in MCU history, the biggest box office failure in MCU history. So I think that's really what it changes more than more than anything internally. I think internally the changes have already been happening.